All right. Well, we're back to the mod mat here, working on the RSV EPYC server. So we're going to go ahead and get our motherboard put in and all of our other stuff. So, all right. So we're going to get our backplane put in here, or our I/O cover. Yeah, that goes in pretty easily. Because this backplane, you can tell, it's got a little bit of flex to it if I really push on it. So it is not as rock hard as the Antec. So maybe at some point I'll quit griping about the fact that it's not an Antec. Maybe. Probably not. I like what I like, damn it. Alright. That's why we keep using this board on everything. Because it's a really solid platform. We don't have issues with it. Usually. So, okay. Why are we sitting up so high? Oh, that's why. Because we don't have a standoff hole there. There's a couple of DIMM slots there. Oh, that's right. Alright. There we go. The ID button is getting hung up on the I/O cover. Alright. That's always fun. Huh. Interesting. Alright. Okay, now, alright, so while I got that, grab our screws here. And since it's the first time I'm using this case, I don't know if they sent us coarse thread or if they sent us standard fine thread. Looks like a fine thread. Which will be normal with every other Rosewill case on the planet. Yep, so it's fine thread. So, alright, so unlike the regular consumer cases where everything's black, this is your typical brass and silver. right, so there's that. So a couple of things about this board that I don't know if I've ever mentioned. So all your fan headers are up here in the front. And then your M.2 slots, this one will support a 2280. This slot number 1 will actually support a 22110. So, which is kind of an added bonus. I guess if you needed to put a really big high capacity M.2 in there, I guess that would be probably what you would end up using that for. So all the power connections are up here, other than the PCIe slot power, which has its own header over here. Let's see what else. USB 3 is right here. You have one standard SATA connector over here. Other than that, that's pretty much it. There's a lot of jumpers on here. There's clear CMOS and some fan jumpers and a bunch of other stuff. There's chassis IDs. So if you had multiples of these, you could actually set the chassis ID on these 3 jumpers down here. Never have we usually more than one of these deployed at a single site, so usually don't even worry about it. There's a couple AEP jumpers up there. And there's AEP jumpers over here. And that's it. So that's pretty straightforward. So yeah. All right, moving on. Okay, so first things first. Let's get this out of the way. Now these guys plug in, let's see, rear fan 2, rear fan 1. So they actually plug in over here. These first 2 headers over here. CPU fan has its own header, and then front fan 1 has its own header. Front fan 4, 3, and 2 have their own headers. So yeah, fun. Okay, so yeah, so if you watch the other one, I usually end up taking these cables here, and I usually end up laying them over here down the side, because once we get the cooler in here, we actually end up with plenty of room to do that. So okay, let's get the chip in. All right, let's get this guy in here. Now remember, it's always 3, 2, 1 to open and 1, 2, 3 to close on an SP3 or a TR4 socket. Alright, make sure our pins are going to line up. So 2 and 2, 1 and 1. When we flip it over, we'll be good. Okay, and we're in, and looks like we're sitting perfectly square like we should be. All right. Okay. All right, memory. Okay, I always have to look this up. So, memory population on this one is A1B1 and E1F1 DIMM slots. And just like the previous server, we've got, it's Nemix RAM, but it's Micron chips on this. So, okay. All right. All right, let's go ahead and get our SSDs in. All right, get our 970 Pros in here. Now these are 1 terabytes. We'll end up running these in a RAID 1 configuration within Windows for redundancy. That way, if we lose one of the SSDs, the system will go ahead and automatically keep running even during a reboot, because it'll just dynamically fail over to the other SSD. Now, the reason for going with the Pros instead of the Evo Plus 970s is these have a 1300 terabytes written life expectancy or warranty from Samsung. So, oops, how about we not child the board? That'd be great. And you always want to make sure these things are fully seated. That's why you always will usually see me kind of give them a squeeze. Make sure the pins are fully seated inside the slots. Because if these are out by a millimeter, they won't detect in Windows sometimes. Or in BIOS. So, okay, so there's our SSDs. The only disadvantage to these versus the Evo Plus is the Evo Plus has a faster write speed than these do, but honestly, with this particular system, it's not like you're going to be writing to these very often, because these are just going to hold the OS and any programs that we have to actually run on the server itself. For the most part, all the read-write is going to be done on, or all the write is going to be done up front on the mechanical drives for the file server part. So, yeah, in theory, these 2 drives should last a very, very long time. So, all right. Well, that's about that. Guess it's time for the cooler. Okay, as you can see, we've got our NH-U9 out. I really like this cooler because it's so low profile. It's great because in a case like this, as you can tell, we do not have a lot of clearance. So we can't go with a super tall cooler on this thing. And so, I mean, we can't do like an Arctic Freezer 50 Freezer 50 TR, which it would fit, but it won't fit in the case with the lid on it, because that cooler sits about almost an inch above the height of the lid itself. So yeah, so we have to go with something like this. So there's very few air coolers out there that actually work as well as this one does. So that's why we just keep using it. Go with what works sometimes, especially in the server world, because you just want what works, not necessarily what's glitzy and flashy and whatever. So, alright, so a couple of things we've got to do here. So it comes out of the box like this. Unfortunately, our fans are backwards because, well, they're not backwards, but they are, well, actually they are backwards. But, so our mounts, so on these you have a narrow set of mounting holes and you have a wide set. Our wide set with this setup, we would actually be pulling air from the top, from the power supply, and we'd be actually exhausting out the bottom. The problem with this is the fan on the power supply pulls air into it. So we need to actually turn these fans around to be able to exhaust properly. The other issue too that we have is the cables, as you can tell, are on the wrong side. They need to be on the front side so that we can plug them into our CPU header, which is the third one here from the top. So, okay. So we're going to get these moved around. The nice thing about this is they're just on spring retainers. So you just stretch them out, pull them, and it pops right off. And then all you have to do is rotate it. Super, super simple. So in this particular case, we've actually need to take both of these off. And so we can totally reverse them. Like so. And then I try to get the fan as centered as possible inside the heatsink, so that way we're not wasting any airflow really. So just like that. And then because we're not using super high memory, of course, I don't think I've ever seen registered memory that I actually had like LEDs on it, but you never know, it could happen. We're not sitting, there we go. Oh, sorta. There we go. Now we're sitting in there, right? Yeah. There we go. Okay. And then those will end up sitting there like this. And then we'll put our adapter cable on, or yeah, so this is our Y cable, which we'll take and it will split our fan header over here, and that's it. And I usually try to kind of as neatly as humanly possible, which isn't always super easy. Though of course we have a bar up here, so probably what I'll end up doing is probably taking it like this and coming down like this, and then actually attaching it to the cable management bar up on top. So, alright, we'll get some thermal paste on this and stick it on there. Okay, so, alright, let's get this moved out of the way for a minute. Okay, now because this cooler is full coverage, we're going to do . that's the end of that tube. And that's where the video ends because my phone died during filming. So the rest of this is going to be a handful of slides of me going over everything from cabling, drive installation, and you'll see the power supply and the final internals all tied up and nice and pretty and neat. So let's get to it. You can see we got our cables put in. We got our drives put in. So here you can see our breakout connector for our SAS cable here, and that goes up to our hard drive base, which you'll see, and they're all plugged in 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you'll also see that we have our singular SATA cable running over across our board and then into our 16 terabyte Exos drive, which is down here on the bottom. So that's all plugged in. And then let's see, you can see we got our fans all connected. And then so on the cooler, the fans on this are actually backwards. I actually ended up fixing that later on. So that's not so much of a big deal. So that got fixed later on because we actually want this pulling air from over the PCI Express slots and then exhausting out through the power supply. From here you can see we got our front panel connectors plugged in down here in the bottom corner, and then on the next slide, or going back to the previous slide, you'll see that we went ahead and installed our cross brace, which previously I had mentioned in the previous video that it would actually make a pretty good tie down point for cables and everything, and that's exactly what we ended up doing. Is I ended up rotating the fans another 90 degrees, so it would actually bring the fan cables up to the top, and then brought them straight over to the crossbars, zip tied them in, and then brought them straight down, which makes for really, really good cable management that way. And then we also have our fan bar in there, which has our three 120 millimeter fans in there, and then we kind of routed those the same way. And in here you can actually see that, so the bottom fan is an Arctic fan, and the top two fans are the stock Rosewill fans. I actually ended up replacing the middle fan with another Arctic. So in this fan bar, we actually have one stock Rosewill fan up on top, and then there are two Arctic fans down in the bottom, plus the other two Arctic fans that we put in the front. So we ended up with 4 Arctic fans in this one and just the one original stock fan. And airflow is absolutely awesome in this thing by doing that. Also, you can see that we went ahead and put our power supply in. And the nice thing with the cross brace, it actually gave us a good tie down point for all the excess power cables. Even though this is a modular power supply, this gives us a point to actually strap all the excess cabling, because the only power cable that actually has to go very far on this one is the PCI Express connector, which is underneath the cross brace, which you can't see on the bottom right hand corner of the motherboard. Everything else is all in the opposite corner, up on the top right of the motherboard, and so that basically means your 8-pin, your 8-pin EPS, your extra 4-pin P4, and your ATX all end up with a whole bunch of extra cable. So it gives us a good place to actually be able to tie all that up. So, alright, but that's basically it. So we'll catch you on the next one. Extreme apologies for this video taking so long to get produced. It's been sitting on my editing computer for probably the last month, and I know I haven't uploaded a video in about 2 weeks, and it's just because of the fact that we've been just so stinking busy around here with service calls and orders and everything else that just have not been able to get to it. So anyways, so extreme apologies for that. There's going to be this video. I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to record, and I'm going to go ahead and record the video for a generic domain controller setup for Windows Server 2019. So it kind of has a how-to video, and that'll go up after this one later this week. So I'm going to try to catch up so that we'll get 2 videos this week, which will kind of sort of catch me up, and then we'll keep moving on. So, and then this might actually be the last video for the Rosewill EPYC server build. I don't know yet because I don't know how much I pre-recorded, and because of time constraints, we had to get that machine up and running and deployed. So it's been up and running for the last about 2 months almost now, and yeah, been working perfectly fine. So questions, comments, concerns, leave those at the bottom. Thanks for watching, and thank you for all the subscribers. As of the time of recording, we are at just over 60. So I'm thoroughly kind of shocked almost that we have that many subscribers. And so I thank you wholeheartedly a massive ton for it. So like, share, subscribe, and so we can keep the channel growing, and maybe I'll actually start making money at this. That would be a nice little bonus. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.